Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, today we're jumping straight into the microscopic world of nature's ultimate rule breakers. If you thought sci-fi writers came up with the whole body snatchers concept, well, nature actually beat them to the punch by millions of years. We're going to map out a highly specialized infection cycle that is, quite honestly, as fascinating as it is terrifying. It's a literal true story of biological espionage.
So I want to start you off with a kind of spooky question. What lives inside a bee but has absolutely no eyes, no legs, and no mouth? Just let that sit in your head for a second. We're talking about a creature that's basically thrown away every single biological tool we normally associate with insect life. And why? Well, because it just doesn't need them where it's going. Okay, let's dive into this. We are looking at the insect order Strepsiptera. These guys are tiny, totally anomalous parasites. The males usually measure just 1.5 to 4 millimeters long, and they're mostly black or some shade of brown. But the thing that makes them truly bizarre is their endoparasitic lifestyle, meaning they live inside the bodies of other bugs. Now, there are about 170 known species, mostly found in the northern hemisphere, but honestly, they're all over the globe. They've got this highly specialized, hyper-bizarre, multi-stage life cycle that scientists call hypermetamorphosis.
Section 1. Extreme battle of the sexes. Male versus female Strepsiptera. Now, what's really interesting here is the staggering contrast between the males and the females. I mean, it's extreme sexual dimorphism. The male, he's winged, he's free-living, he's got this super thin, almost transparent outer shell, bulging compound eyes, and these wild branched antennae absolutely covered in sensory organs. His front wings are basically just these tiny club-like things, but his hind wings are huge and fan-shaped. But then, look at the female. She's completely modified for a permanently parasitic life. She literally never leaves the host, she's larviform, completely limbless, which we call apodous, and she's totally blind. Actually, her head and thorax are entirely fused together into this one structure called a cephalothorax. And get this, she stays trapped inside her persistent larval cuticle for her entire life. Section 2. The process of stylopisation, targeted insect invasions. So what do we actually call this? The scientific term for this crazy invasion is stylopisation. That's the process of systematic parasitation of host organisms by adult Strepsiptera. Because of this, the adults are actually known as stylops, and any poor, unfortunate bug that happens to be carrying these parasites around is officially referred to as being stylopized. So who exactly are these victims? Well, stylops don't just attack at random, right? Their hosts are mostly members of Homeoptera, plus wasp and bee superfamilies like Vespoidea, Sphecoidea, and Apoidea. We're talking about your everyday bugs here, general like Liburnia, Vespa, Polistus, and Halictus. But you really want to pay attention to that last one, Andrana. This specific genus of bees gets attacked more than almost anything else. They've got an exceptionally long list of victimized species. Section 3. Hitchhiking to the nest, the great escape. Okay, but think about this for a second. How on earth does a limbless, completely blind female who is literally trapped inside a flying bee manage to spread her babies to new hosts? Well, it's basically a four-part espionage mission. First, the larvae actually hatch inside the mother's body. They pass into this brood pouch and then just pour out in massive numbers through her brood canal. Usually they emerge super early in the morning, right after the host takes flight. Step 2, they just wait. They hang out on the host's body until they get a chance to jump ship, which is usually when the host lands on a flower. They drop off and they wait patiently. Then comes step 3, hitchhiking. When some new, perfectly healthy insect comes along to visit that exact same flower, the tiny larvae grab on. They literally hitch a ride straight back to the new bug's nest. And finally, step 4. Once they're inside the nest, they hunt down the host's own larvae. They rapidly burrow right through the body wall of the developing insect, and just like that, the invasion has officially begun. Section 4. Growing inside the host, the alien invasion. All right, let's slow down for a sec because we need to look at the really spooky internal mechanics once this thing is actually inside the victim. So after it successfully breaks in, the stylopid larva goes through a molting process called ecdysis. This gets it to its second instar stage. And you know how they had to burrow to get in? Well, once they're inside, they don't need legs anymore. They lose them entirely, transforming it into this limbless, basically maggot-like form that just hides deep inside the host's body. And the whole sci-fi body snatcher vibe, it's perfectly illustrated by how they eat. You'd probably assume they just start chomping on the host's insides, right? But no, not at all. They feed by filtering the host's blood directly through their own delicate outer skin. They don't actually pierce or penetrate the host's organs. Instead, they just kind of wedge themselves into the empty body cavities and swell up, literally shoving the host's internal organs completely out of position as they grow. It's wild. So, the absolutely crucial point here is the seventh instar stage. This is where the whole invisible invasion reaches its dramatic, very visible climax. At the seventh instar, the parasite forcefully works its way outward to actually protrude from the host's abdomen. Usually by this time, the victimized wasp or bee is in its pupal stage. The parasite just pushes right through the intersegmental membrane. That's the soft, vulnerable tissue directly between the fourth and fifth armored segments of the bug's abdomen. And if the parasite is a female, that weird yellowish-brown cephalothorax we talked about earlier becomes permanently visible. It just pokes right out through the side of the host. Which brings us full circle. The cycle restarts. Now, we know the females stay locked inside their hosts literally forever, but what about the males? Well, males are actually the more common of the two, though you can sometimes find both in the same host. Here's the kicker. When those free-flying males finally emerge, they only live for a few hours. They don't even have working mouths to eat with. Their one and only purpose in life is to use those giant fan-shaped wings and complex antennae to frantically track down a host that has a protruding female. Mating happens on the fly, literally. The male lands on the flying host and mates via the opening of the female's brood canal, which, if you remember, is the exact same canal the next generation of larvae is going to come pouring out of. So, we've walked through the whole bizarre journey of the Strepsiptera. We went from microscopic hitchhiker to an organ-shoving body snatcher. But it does leave us with one final, kind of unsettling question, doesn't it? How many stylopised insects are quietly hiding in plain sight, right out there in your own garden? Next time you're outside and you see a bee or a wasp buzzing around a flower, take a closer look at its abdomen. You might just be looking at the ultimate invisible alien invasion operating right outside your window. Thanks for hanging out for today's explainer. Keep observing, keep asking questions, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.